Good evening and welcome back to CNN Money Switzerland and our ongoing coverage of coronavirus. I'm Olivia Chang. The number of positive cases in Switzerland has now increased by over 1,000 since yesterday, bringing the total count to about 18,000 cases. Daniel Koch, who's the outgoing head of infectious diseases, said that while the increase wasn't as steep as in previous weeks, the crisis still hasn't reached its peak and it's still too early to relax restrictions. The public health authorities will continue to discuss the situation with scientific experts and epidemiologists. SBB, Switzerland's national railway, has scaled back its services in the last step of its phased approach, cancelling its intercity service between Geneva Airport and Fribourg, among others. This comes after an 80 to 90% reduction in demand for public transportation during the coronavirus pandemic. And fragrance maker Givaudan has also joined efforts to boost supplies in this whole fight against coronavirus, saying it will donate some 700,000 bottles of disinfectant over the next 2 weeks. Now, some of the supplies will be going to hospitals in Canton Geneva as well as Vaud. Givaudan will not only be producing in Switzerland, but also other European sites like in France and in the US in the coming weeks. Boeing is now offering employees buyouts as coronavirus takes a toll on the aviation industry. Now, this was in a message in a memo sent to employees, with Boeing CEO Dave Calhoun saying that the company is taking this measure to, quote, reduce the need for other workforce actions. The company employs some 161,000 people. While most European nations have gone into lockdown as a way to try and contain the virus, one country stands out by taking a more, shall we say, relaxed approach, and that's Sweden. While gatherings of over 50 people are being banned, schools are still open and people are still going to work. Now, my colleague Hannah Wise caught up with Swedish television reporter Marcus Karlsson to see why they are taking this very unique approach.
Well, I think it's got to do with the way that this crisis is really run. It's not really the government that's in the driving seat when it comes to this crisis, because this issue is seen as a non-partisan issue in Sweden. So instead, it's the public health authority that has taken the lead role in this. And it's essentially a government agency, but it's not political. So in a sense, it doesn't have the same political pressures as perhaps a government would have in order to implement tougher measures. So that may be the reason why Sweden has sort of taken a different road, in a sense that they haven't shut schools here for folks up to 15, and other measures aren't as harsh as in other countries. For instance, just last week, where it took until last week for the government to back a ban on crowds of more than 50 people.
And how is it working out then? I mean, when you look at the statistics, if you look at the number of infections, do you think that they are taking the right road?
It's so difficult to say, and most experts say that this is going to take a few more weeks in order to know whether the Swedish way is actually working. At the moment, there are about 5,000 infected people in Sweden. 239 people have been confirmed dead as a result of COVID-19. In relative terms, those numbers are still lower than other European countries. But of course, the experts, they also warn that these curves will increase, that this number of cases will actually increase, and so will the dead.
And therefore, potentially, so will the restrictions. I mean, how worried are you as a citizen, not as a journalist, but as someone who's living in Sweden and able to go about your daily business? Are you very conscious of that?
Yeah, of course, we're very conscious. I mean, the government and the experts, they say every day that you should stay at home if you're feeling ill, even the slightest bit. You shouldn't really be visiting your relatives, your elderly relatives. There's a ban on that.
How is that in practice? I mean, do you feel that you are able to perhaps work from home if you wanted to? Is it frowned upon to stay at home?
They are being asked by the government and by the experts to introduce measures so that it's possible to work from home. And a lot of folks are working from home. There are fewer people in the streets and there are fewer people on public transport, but perhaps not in the same way as in other European countries, people are still out in the streets, but in fewer numbers.
When you tell me about the fact that this is a public health issue, and therefore it's the health part of the government that's dealing with this and making the decisions, do they therefore feel that their health or the health system in Sweden is much better prepared to deal with what's coming than, for example, what we've seen in Italy, France, Spain, and here in Switzerland as well?
Well, there is a hope in Sweden that perhaps the number of cases won't increase at exactly the same pace as it has done in Italy or in Spain. The experts are fairly confident that that will be the case. Still, though, the Swedish health system is seen as vulnerable, and ordinarily there are around about 500 places for intensive care. There are 500 places in intensive care units around Sweden. Everybody is fairly in agreement that that won't be enough. So the government over the past few weeks or so has been working very, very hard, and the experts and the Public Health Authority has been working very hard to scale up and to essentially double at least the number of intensive care beds in Sweden.
Is there a concern for shutting down and impacting the economy? I mean, we've seen huge impact here in Switzerland, for example.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there have been complaints within the financial community here in Sweden that the Public Health Authority doesn't think enough about the Swedish economy. But of course, the authority sort of needs to weigh everything up. They say that they're prioritizing lives at the moment, but also that the economy is in the back of their heads. And perhaps that's the reason why we haven't seen the same kind of draconian measures as in other European countries. So they're trying to sort of strike the right balance at all times. Still, though, I mean, there are plenty of warnings that the Swedish economy will take a battering because of COVID-19. Just a government watchdog today said that the Swedish economy will probably shrink by about 4% in 2020.
And do you see more draconian measures coming your way in the near future?
Certainly, I think that the experts in the Public Health Authority will be tinkering around the edges. I think for sure there will be more measures in place.
I'm just wondering if they are perhaps a little concerned about the criticism that maybe has come from Europe towards Sweden for their lack of severe measures.
I wouldn't say so. I mean, they get the question constantly, why aren't you following everybody else's lead? Why aren't you taking the same measures as in other countries? And they're saying, look, we've got to look at the data. We've got to look at the Swedish way of life. For instance, Sweden has the highest rate of single-person households in the world, they say, which means that perhaps people don't have the same kind of contact surfaces in this country as they do in other countries. That's one of the reasons, or that may be one of the reasons that they're thinking the way that they are.
Storefronts may be closed, but many neighborhood shops are still open for online business. And to help them get that message across, a group of social entrepreneurs have created a new website called beyoutlocalhero.com. Now, my colleague Tanya Koenig caught up with co-founder Nadia Müller to get her take.
Nadia Müller, thanks for joining me. You're one of the co-initiators of the platform Be Local Hero, and you're trying to help small businesses to get through this COVID-19 outbreak. Explain us how.
Yeah, thank you. With Be Local Hero, we want to help the two heroes. So on one side, we have, as you mentioned, the small businesses. They had to close their stores or to close the bar and cannot anymore sell their services and products. And on the other side, we have the local neighborhood, the community, and they really could support them in this phase, in this crisis we have now. And with Be Local Hero, we want to connect them. So we want that the neighborhood can digitally walk through their neighborhood and see which stores and bars still have something to offer, and they can support them through buying like something like a voucher or flowers, which could be delivered at home, and so on.
Yeah, so there are a few platforms popping up now to help small shops. Others, for instance, like Miteinander, where you can actually directly buy vouchers for shops. Or this week, also another app was launched called Points, where you can also buy vouchers. So basically, giving cash ahead of time to these businesses. And I was wondering, why is this so important, and why is it so needed?
Yeah, we have the support from the government to pay the salaries, which is very good. And they also offer these loans, which the business, the shops and so can take. But there we have the problem that if you take such a loan, then you don't have enough saving to go over this crisis now. So probably you cannot pay it back after the crisis. Because if you can't sell a beer today, you won't sell twice two beers after the crisis. So that's really an issue. And yeah, if we can support these local businesses today, probably they can survive this crisis, and we will have a lively and interesting neighborhood afterwards.
Mm. Yeah, I also heard from a few freelancers or small businesses, they actually don't want to take a loan because they don't want to have this debt. So if we can help them by buying some services now, then of course they have a bit more of cash flow or reserves they can use. So yeah, it's a great initiative. I was wondering, how is the response so far? How many shops have registered? And as I understand, it's free for them to register on your platform.
Yeah, it is free for both sides, for both heroes, and this is for us a very important thing. Yeah, because we really believe in this solidarity. At the moment, we have around 300 registered shops, which is great, and it's growing, I mean, from half an hour to half an hour. So we really hope that we can get more people from both sides on the platform.
And what is the feedback that you get? How are people responding?
So yeah, the businesses are very grateful that we support that for them, that they have like a window to show them. And on the other hand, we have nice stories which we hear from the customers from the neighborhood. So there was one woman who told us that she found shops that she didn't know before, that they are just beside her, and yeah, now she ordered something to support them. That's very nice to hear.
So you're actually exploring the neighborhood. Maybe you always go to the same shops, and now you're aware that there are others that you might not know of. Is that something that you want to keep doing after coronavirus is over, or at least that whole pandemic?
Yeah, actually that's how or why we chose this name, Be Local Hero. It's not adapted to the crisis, so we also want to have many local heroes after the crisis, and we want to have a sustainable platform, and therefore we are looking now how we could finance that it can be sustainable. Therefore we are looking for foundation or economic partners to support us, because as we said before, it should be and stay free for all users, for the shops and the community.
And time to bring you now a quick sports update. Our sports correspondent Matt Layton digs into the challenges for media rights in the sports and broadcast industry.
Is the market really messed up, or can you see some sort of way it's going?
Yeah, look, it is messed up because if you switch on your television, and this is how we've grown up, and especially the younger generation, you switch on and normally you have sports everywhere coming through all channels, social media channels, on every platform. It's always about sports and live sports. So it would be wrong to say, no, it's not messed up. It is messed up. It has a big impact. But as long as it doesn't take too long to come back, I think we will be fine. It's just a little bit of a question how long this takes, and there we are all a little bit up in the air.
There's going to be a lot of interesting discussions, I think, between lawyers in the media rights world. Are we expecting lots of actions, or are we expecting civilized decisions?
I think there's a few things that you have to consider. Generally, it's very clear. You know, the contract says if an event is cancelled, we don't get the money from the broadcaster and we don't pay our rights holder. I think that's the base. Of course, there's more to it. First of all, there's a difference between a big event, a championship, or let's say 1, 2, 3 races of a big season. So how do you value those races in comparison to the whole season? So there's a lot to consider. And even when you have something black or white, these are your partners on the broadcaster side and also on the rights holder side. So there will always be discussions, no matter how clear the contracts are, even if it's amicable discussions, and hopefully they will be all amicable because the contracts are clear, or in most cases they're clear. But you have discussions because that's part of it. You want to make sure that all partners, including ourselves, we are all happy at the end, and we all come out, let's put it this way, sort of happy, and we can look into the future where we all are safe and robust.
Can you see an end to this once coronavirus comes out? And how long will it take the market to get back to normal?
I hope that by May, June, something will move again. That's, I think, all of our hope. And then the good thing, at least I think on the broadcasting side, it will pick up very quickly, because as soon as there is live content again on television, on platforms, people will be happy to resubscribe if they have canceled their subscriptions, or they will just be happy to watch again. And for us, it will mean coming back to our daily bread and butter, to our usual work, and it will pick up more quickly. If I may add one thing, and that's not my expertise, but I guess, for example, on sponsorship, it will be a bit different, because a lot of companies have been affected and will be affected. So it may take a bit longer there, I believe, to get on track. But as I said, it's not my expertise. I hope, and I'm confident that if this doesn't take too long, broadcasting will pick up very quickly.
That's all for now, but remember, as usual, you can catch up with all of our content by heading over to Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, as well as all the content over at our website, cnnmoney.ch, where we have all the latest interviews. In the meantime, stay safe, take care, and we will see you tomorrow.